So after you put something in for the bell ringer there, U.S. leadership in the Cold War, European culture, what did you learn about that? You can see the rest of the agenda for today. For the assignment labeled USW3 EU, we'll review a slideshow which goes over the European Union. And then after you look through that, you'll type 5 to 7 sentences addressing the following prompt. What is the European Union? And what else could have been included in the slideshow? Just please make sure that you proofread. So if we take a look at that, if you click on it if you haven't already. You'll see the same instructions there. Review the following slideshow. When you're done, type 5 to 7 sentences addressing the following prompt. What is the European Union and what else could have been included in the slideshow? And so you can go ahead and go through at your own pace and just look at the information that they have in the slideshow itself. Then click Submit, and in the text box, answer that prompt. Then for the remainder of the period, we'll go ahead and take the rest of the notes for the unit, which once again talks about Europe's evolution and then finally their unity. We'll also talk about some of the technological developments that happened as well. We'll do that in the notes. And then for the remainder of the period, you have time to complete any of the Unit 3 assignments, including the quiz. Unless you, of course, took the map quiz and got 100%, then, of course, you don't have to do that. So for right now, for the first half of the period, look through that slideshow and then address the prompt that is listed on that page. Does anybody have any questions? All right, so go ahead and please raise your hand if you have any questions, and then about 25 minutes we'll stop and take the notes. So now we'll just take a brief pause to finish up the notes. And first, let's talk about how technology impacted Europe. And obviously, two of the most important components that would influence Europe would be the same as in the United States and the rest of the world. It would be the personal computer and the internet. Personal computer and the internet. And of course, because of these things, you see a lot of information and businesses expand, educational opportunities. And when you have all of that meshing back and forth, obviously all these old borders that kept people apart seemed less and less permanent. Not only that, but entertainment could also spread culture between different countries in Europe through cable and satellite TV, for instance. But an important thing to remember, of course, is that most of this is being influenced by Western Europe, even after the Cold War ended. And going along with that technology, of course, is the advancement of health and medicine. Just like in the United States, life expectancy increased in Europe, leading to a great increase in population. Except it's actually increased in Western Europe more than in the United States. Mostly because, as I said in the video, one of the videos we watched yesterday, healthcare is considered a basic right, so people are more likely to go to the doctor to catch things before they happen and to get better advice throughout their lives. Despite this, though, a few countries have actually seen a population decline because of lower birth rates. And of course, one of the concerns when it comes to technology and healthcare is the spread of disease, especially since people can travel a lot more throughout Europe. It's really easy for a disease to just hit one country and spread to another. It was already easy as far back as the 1300s when the bubonic plague spread through the continent. But now, because of rail and air travel and highways going through the entire continent, it's even easier for that to happen. And that includes a wide variety of diseases, including COVID over the last year. And lastly, I'll talk about what was involved in the slideshow that you saw. How and why did Europe unify? Now, this map is actually slightly incorrect because of one change that's happened over the last couple of years, but I'll talk about that at the end here. But these countries, with one exception, that are colored blue, belong to what we know of as the European Union. Now, originally, as we saw in the video, they started off kind of as different organizations with much different names, even going back to the beginning, just being for the purpose of trading things like steel and coal. But eventually, there became more and more of a need to open up trade throughout the entire continent. And that definitely increased after the Cold War ended. So there was a need for resources, including labor, throughout the entire continent. And after the Soviet Union fell in the early 1990s, you almost had a ready acceptance of countries from the eastern part to eventually join with those in the West in what they would call the European Union. And of course, it helped that a lot of these countries had a lot in common politically. They mentioned in the video, so you don't have to write this next part down. I mentioned in the video they have cradle to grave services like healthcare and education. And a lot of these countries, no matter if they were on the west or the east, they kind of had these in common. So there isn't a lot of political conflict that happens between them. You do have, of course, some political parties that say spend more and some political parties that say spend less, just like in the United States. But other than that, there are a lot of similarities. The one thing that they wanted to get rid of was something called protectionism. Protectionism. And protectionism is when a country basically says people should only buy from us. We shouldn't buy from anyone else. Now, you might say, well, isn't that a good thing? Well, in Europe, because of its compact size, it would be like if only Pennsylvanians bought Pennsylvanian things, and only people from Ohio bought things from Ohio. So it confines what you can buy. It limits the amount of resources that you have access to. And it generally isn't good for businesses because businesses just don't want to sell in Pennsylvania. They want to be able to sell to people in other states. And the same thing is true in Europe. They wanted to open it up to being able to sell more and to buy more. And so the beginning of the European Union was really in 1957. So we can trace its root the whole way back to then, 1957. And it was originally referred to as the EEC. And it would morph over time, as it explained in the video, to eventually 1993, when it will become the European Union. And even though in the early 90s the Cold War will end, it will take a little while for all of the European states in the East to be admitted. So, but by 2004, that's what had happened. The European Union had expanded into the East by 2004. Now, some people might think of as the EU as a country, but that's not really what it is. Bless you. Their main focus is trade. Trade is their main focus. But it is easy to confuse with a country because there is an EU constitution, a president, and a parliament. So they do have all three of those things: a constitution, a president, and a parliament. But their main focus, once again, isn't to have a military or any other national programs that we have, for instance, as the United States of America. That's not what their concern is. Really their only one is trade. Are goods and services and people able to move throughout the European continent freely? And so that's one of the things they do have in common with the United States is we allow goods and services and people to move from Pennsylvania to New York to Ohio and so on without really any types of barriers. And that is basically what the European Union is like. So the economic existence of the United States is how the European Union exists. So if you're Italian, you don't have to worry about stopping and getting approved to go into Austria or France. Just like if you're a Pennsylvanian, you don't have to worry about that if you go to New York. And they have done some things to draw the continent closer together, for instance, like the development of the euro. So they do have their own form of currency. Now, the last thing that I'll mention, of course, is that even though it's been a great success, the economic development has been phenomenal, including in Eastern Europe. Some of the problems they had under communism that we mentioned, they kind of peaked and stagnated, didn't really grow much. But after they joined the EU, they also started to develop rapidly as well. So there has been a lot of success. However, some people obviously don't like the idea of having to work with all these other people to approve things involving trade. And that included a large segment of the population within the United Kingdom. So, over the last few years, there has been a movement in the United Kingdom that's referred to as Brexit, which is spelled Brexit. That's Brexit, to leave the European Union. So, an updated map would not have the UK colored in blue like it is up there right now. Now, that has also caused all kinds of other problems because now they have to go back and establish individual treaties with all the European countries since they're no longer part of the EU. And it also causes a problem, too, because Ireland is still part of the EU, but Northern Ireland is part of the UK. So now people, if they just want to come to the United Kingdom, they just have to go to Ireland to go north and then travel across the sea on a boat to go into England. So there's obviously, it's not as simple as, well, we'll just withdraw and things will be fine, because there's a lot of complex situations involved when it comes to the UK. And not only that, but Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, actually, when they voted on this, all voted to stay in the EU. And so they're all quite furious that the people in England were able to outvote them. So that will have some kind of long-term effect on the UK as well. But that's all on the European Union and the notes for this unit. And so once you get your comments and questions put in the margin, and then the summary down at the bottom, you can go ahead and submit that for this week. And then on top of that, the other thing that I'll mention is, for the remainder of the day, you can, of course, don't forget to submit your notes, but then complete any of the other Unit 3 assignments that you haven't already done. Make sure you get those submitted. Take the quiz, the unit quiz, at least once. You can take it up to twice. The exception, of course, if you took the map quizzes and got 100% on the last one, you don't have to take the unit quiz. Are there any questions? Any questions at all? Okay. So go ahead and use this time to submit everything. They are open till 11:59 p.m., but of course, it's better to get it done while you're still here in school.